UFC Matrix-like performances. Now, a Matrix performance is one where they perform, or a fighter performs extremely well, whether that means they get their opponent out there very quickly, or they just dominate them for 5 rounds and the fight isn't even close. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the best UFC Matrix performances in both modern MMA and, old MMA. Starting off with one of the best. Now, for this particular fighter, I could have chose various fights. He's kind of like the Floyd Mayweather of MMA. He's known for the Matrix's performances. I'm going to go for Anderson Silva versus Forrest Griffin. Anderson Silva had some of the best striking and defenses in the game. It was incredibly hard to hit this man. If you managed to hit this man, fair play. And on top of that, he had extremely good counter punching. He had great power. And this fight, I'm going to choose because, it was going to be between this one. Well, I'm going to choose the Forrest Griffin fight purely because, first of all, it ended in the first round, and Forrest Griffin just couldn't touch him. I think he landed like 3 strikes in the entire fight. When I look at the stats, 3 strikes Forrest Griffin landed out of 42 thrown. Anderson Silva, 13 strikes, and that managed to KO him. He had a 92% accuracy, whereas Forrest Griffin only had a 33% accuracy. Anderson Silva in this fight was insane, dodging everything that Forrest Griffin could ever throw until eventually a counter right puts Forrest Griffin out cold. This wasn't even competitive. This was like when you merge 2 generations of MMA together. You had Forrest Griffin, who's in one of the older generations of the UFC, and then you got Anderson Silva, the new era, and he schooled Forrest Griffin. This wasn't even close. Like I said, you could have used Anderson Silva for various different fights, even the 5 rounders where he just mocks the opponent for 5 rounds. Sometimes it came back and bit him, like the Chris Weidman fight where he was, putting hands down, being all cocky, and then he got caught. But this fight was a Matrix-like performance. Anderson Silva could have lost 3 of the rounds, and I still think he would have managed to get a win in the last 2. Anderson Silva, he had a great defense. Him in his prime was unstoppable, and this was one of the best performances he's ever done in UFC history. So, Matrix performance number 1, I'm going to go Forrest Griffin versus Anderson Silva. Wasn't even close. 3 strikes to how many? Like 3 to 13. Ended in the first round pretty quickly. Anderson Silva dominated him. Wasn't even competitive. Then we move on to the next one. Again, I could have used this fighter for various fights, and this is more of a modern fight. It happened a few years ago. Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. This really wasn't close at all. This really was not close at all. Max Holloway beat the brakes off Calvin Kattar. This is kind of like the one fight in Calvin Kattar's career that kind of overshadows his entire career. Max Holloway's had many good fights, the Yair Rodriguez fight, the Volkanovski fights. But this one is really the one where he put an absolute beating on Calvin Kattar. The one where he was, slapping him in the face, punching him in the face, and wasn't even looking at him, talking to the commentary, looking away and still managing to dodge punches. And Calvin Kattar is a good striker as well. People think that Calvin Kattar's trash. Calvin Kattar is a solid striker at featherweight, but Max Holloway is a whole nother level. One of the best strikers in the UFC. What he did to Calvin Kattar for this fight was insane. He didn't finish Calvin Kattar. It was a decision win, but it was 5 rounds of absolute bullying. He bullied Calvin Kattar in this fight from round 1 to round 5. It wasn't even competitive. Just bullying him on the feet. Calvin Kattar couldn't do anything. He had no response to anything. He made Calvin Kattar look like an amateur in this fight. If you haven't watched this fight, I highly suggest you watch it. One of the biggest bullying, the highlights of this fight as well. When this first happened, there was so much hype. This rose Max Holloway's stock up so much. Max Holloway bullied him in there. Absolutely bullied him in there. And coming into the Volk trilogy, I was kind of scared for Volk because he just put back-to-back performances on Kattar and Rodriguez. I was kind of worried for Volkanovski. But I'm gonna have to go with Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar. This was incredible. I should have also put Volkanovski and Korean Zombie on this list now that I think about it, but it don't matter. But Calvin Kattar schooled by Holloway. Like I said, this wasn't close. Just the jabs, the right hands, the hooks, everything. Kattar didn't even have a response to this. But yeah, this was one of the most Matrix performances in the UFC. Then we move on to an even more recent one, which I don't think people give enough credit for. Tom Aspinall versus Alexander Volkov. This was a very good Matrix performance. You could have also used Tom Aspinall versus Marcin Tybura, but I feel like he just put him out there pretty quickly. and I don't think he mixed it up enough, but I'm going to go Tom Aspinall versus Alexander Volkov. Alexander Volkov was a former champion and ranked at this time. He was one of the scariest fighters, the tallest fighters in the UFC, this 6'9" Russian who can kick like a monster, some powerful hits, been in there, veteran, former champion, dangerous, scary. Tom Aspinall's best win at this point was Sergey Spivak and Andrei Arlovsky. So, it was kind of a dark horse. Aspinall goes in there and schools him everywhere. Starts on the feet, Volkov can't touch him. Aspinall's 10 times as fast, 10 times as powerful, takes him down, elbows him, basically damages Volkov, knee to the rib, then it gets back on the feet again. Aspinall plays him, slips a little bit, then as he slips down, dodges another punch, and then that takedown at the end of the fight, at the end of the round, where Volkov goes for a head kick, Aspinall goes back, then he goes for a right hand, Aspinall slips, goes for the takedown and submits him. This was so slick. If you've seen this fight, this is a Matrix performance. Aspinall was in the Matrix for this fight. Absolutely dominated Volkov. Now look at what Volkov has done since this fight. He's beaten, I think he beat Rosenstrike and Alexander Romanov at UFC Marab versus Yan. But Tom Aspinall, and I'm sure this isn't the last Matrix performance he's going to do. Like I said, you could have also used Marcin Tybura, but it just happened a little bit too quickly. And plus, I can't say his name. Marcin Tybura isn't really Volkov level opponent, but this was kind of like another new generation of MMA. Aspinall just took out Volkov like it was nothing, showed that he's better in every single aspect, got his respect early, and then submitted him with ease. No one has done this to Volkov. Even Curtis Blades couldn't do this to Volkov. Yeah, Tom Aspinall in this fight was insane, and I'm sure this isn't going to be the last Matrix performance he has. And then we're going to go to another one which is fairly old, fairly new, and I think this is one of the more popular ones. Cody Garbrandt versus Dominick Cruz. Coming into this fight, Dominick Cruz was such a dangerous opponent. He was so quick, his head movement was fast, great counter punching, insane accuracy. Dominick Cruz was like the guy to beat in this division. He was like one of the greatest in this divisions. Cody Garbrandt comes in and bullies him. Mocking him the entire fight, dancing around, counter punching. Dominick Cruz couldn't hit him, swinging, and he just couldn't hit him. Cody Garbrandt counterpunched pretty easily. This wasn't even close. Dropped Dominick Cruz. Cruz goes for takedowns, misses. This is the best performance of Cody Garbrandt's career. Some people even say that Cody Garbrandt could have beaten any bantamweight in the world on this night. Cody Garbrandt looked insane. His accuracy, his reflexes, his speed was just 10 times better. His confidence was at an all-time high. If we ever get this Cody Garbrandt back, that's going to be scary because this was insane. He was so fast and slick. Dominick Cruz was meant to be the fast and slick one, and he looked like an amateur in here. He looked like this wasn't even competitive at all. 9 times out of 10, Cody Garbrandt Dominick Cruz would have won. But in this particular performance, Cody Garbrandt came in and shocked him and the world, man. This wasn't even close. Cody Garbrandt just teeing off on him, dancing on him. Dominick Cruz tried taking it down to the floor, couldn't do it. Tried striking with him, couldn't do it. Wasn't even close. Ever since this fight, we've not really had the same Cody Garbrandt. Got KO'd by TJ Dillashaw twice. Then he went on a bit of a losing streak. Tried moving to 125, gets beaten by Kai Kara France. He's coming off a win now, but yeah, this was such a good performance. If you've never seen this fight, please watch it. This is one of the best Matrix performances in the UFC. Everything was calculated by Cody Garbrandt. Dominick Cruz couldn't have done anything. Like I said, some people genuinely believe you put any bantamweight in the world against Cody Garbrandt that night, and Cody Garbrandt comes out on top. Wasn't even close. Insane performance. Then we're going to go for one, and I know I said I didn't really like putting quick finishes on there, but I've just got to mention this one. Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. I was going to put either McGregor versus Aldo or McGregor versus Alvarez. I picked Aldo. Coming into this fight, Aldo was the greatest featherweight in the world, beating everybody. This absolutely dangerous, hard-hitting, well-rounded guy from Brazil who couldn't be stopped. Conor McGregor at this point had to put a couple of wins together, and he knocked out Jose Aldo in a few seconds. Aldo, I think he got one significant strike, and that was when he was already asleep. 13 seconds of just dancing. Aldo goes in, McGregor right around the jaw, KOs him out cold. This was another generational move. This was Conor McGregor, the new gen, versus Jose Aldo, old gen. Jose Aldo was the king of featherweight. No one could beat him. Nobody fought McGregor would be the guy to do it as well. No one thought Conor McGregor would be the guy to beat Jose Aldo, but he did in 13 seconds. 13 seconds, that's one of the fastest knockouts in UFC history as well. This was such a good performance. And then, like I said, I could have also used the Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez. Conor McGregor at featherweight was a beast. He's still okay at lightweight. I mean, what has he actually done at lightweight? Realistically, he beat Eddie Alvarez. That's all he's really done. Lost to Khabib, lost to Poirier twice. I think was it welterweight that he lost to? No, he lost to Nate Diaz and beat Nate Diaz, and then at welterweight he beat Cerrone. But featherweight McGregor, I think he was undefeated at featherweight as well. Unfortunately, he never got to defend either belts. But Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo, it's a 13-second watch. I'm sure you've seen it already. Matrix-like performance. This was insane. Then we're going to go to another old one. Jon Jones versus Shogun Rua. Jon Jones, once again, is one of those fighters that you could use so many of his fights for an example, because he's just so good everywhere. You want to strike with him, he's got lethal kicks, lethal elbows, lethal clinch work. You want to wrestle with him, I mean, look at what he did to Lyoto Machida. Shogun Rua, he was the champion at this time, the light heavyweight champion, just come from Pride. Absolute knockout artist, so dangerous, so scary, so intimidating. Jon Jones was 23 years old at this time. Comes in and bullies him. On the feet, he uses his height and reach to just beat him everywhere it goes. Those body kicks, those liver shots, even head strikes, the elbows around the jaw, and then tripping him up and dominating him on the floor. I mean, what he did to Shogun Rua on the floor was insane. Just ground and pound, ground and pound, ground and pound. Shogun Rua was meant to be this untouchable, scary light heavyweight. Jones came in and bullied him for 5 rounds. He made it look... It wasn't even close. I think he finished him in the 4th round, 3rd or 4th round, but it wasn't even close, man. Shogun Rua looked like he wanted to quit his job. Shogun Rua looked like he didn't want to step in an octagon ever again after this fight because of how dangerous Jones was. This was prime Jones, man. This was prime Jones. So dangerous, lethal. It wasn't even just like he scraped a win or he just beat Shogun Rua like a passing of the torch. This wasn't no Marab versus Aldo situation. This was an absolute beating. He beat him like he owed him money in this fight. Shogun Rua looked like he didn't even belong in the light heavyweight division. He looked like to say this guy was the champion, the defending champion. I think he was a former Pride champion as well. And Jones came in 23 years old and just bullied him. Anywhere the fight went, on the feet, destroyed him. On the floor, destroyed him. Until eventually, ground and pound got the best of him and he quit. But Jon Jones, this was a Matrix-like performance. Last one I'm going to go to is Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa. If you look at the significant strike difference for this fight, it's a lot different from what I remember it being. Adesanya destroyed Costa, which he shouldn't have, because Costa came in this fight undefeated, never lost a fight, coming off KOs as well, beating Yoel Romero. It was supposed to be somewhat competitive, a lot, bulkier than Adesanya too. Adesanya bullied him. Those leg kicks on Costa, Costa's leg got destroyed. Adesanya defended anything Costa had to offer. Costa came in with supreme confidence. Any punches, any kicks he threw, Adesanya was there, ready for it. Adesanya just teed off on him, showed him that Costa bullied him for being skinny, and Adesanya just beat his face up, man. That skinny power. And then any time Costa tried grappling with him, had no success until eventually Adesanya caught him at the right time and finished him on the floor. This was not close at all. Adesanya really showed that there's levels to this. Paulo Costa, people hyped him up, he's going to be the next big thing. He's strong, he's got power, he's undefeated. Adesanya bullied him. Adesanya showed that he's the champion and he's here to stay at this point. And ever since this fight, Adesanya kept defending the middleweight belt, obviously until the Pereira fight. But I mean, you could have used another example for Adesanya. You could have used the Anderson Silva fight, but that wasn't really just a one-sided beatdown. You could have maybe used a Whittaker fight, but it kind of ended too quick. I'm going to go with the Paulo Costa fight. He was just straight bullying for 3 rounds. Wasn't even close until he got the finish. And yeah, those are my Matrix-like performances. Please let me know if you agree with any of them or if I missed any of them off. But I think these are pretty fair play. I mean, I probably would have had a Volkanovski Korean Zombie one if I could. But those are my Matrix performances. Let me know if you agree.